What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 11 of Morbid Curator podcast. I'm your host, RotKorpse's. On this episode, we're going to be talking about metal with my dad. Special episode, special guest. What's up, Dad?
Not much, bub. How are you doing?
Good, man. This is going to be a great year for metal. I can already tell from I'm going to a Volvodynia concert on March 5th. So that's going to be badass. And then there's like so many other shows. What were the other tours?
I totally agree. There's Ingested coming up with Devourment.
Yeah, that's going to be sick. Extermination, Dismemberment. What was the Organectomy?
Yeah.
Dude, that show is going to be one badass
that's
show.
Be sick as fuck, yeah.
That's like, you got to go to that show. If you're into slam, brutal death metal, I mean, that's definitely the lineup to go see. And there's another tour. What was it? The Chaos and Carnage with Dying Fetus, Aborted, Suicide Silence. Yeah, man, and that's just the beginning. I mean, we haven't even gotten into half the year yet, and these are already the tours and lineups that we have. So
because I think that takes us up to April or June.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this year, man. It's going to be a great year in the metal world. So we're going to talk a little bit about, myself and the listeners want to know, what got you into metal? Like, what was what kind of was the turning point for you to get into metal?
Well, I've always been into rock growing up as a kid. Unfortunately, my parents always, they frowned upon that. And I had a lot of friends and that would listen to like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Kiss. So that kind of got me into what I really wanted to get into. But what really, really did it for me was back in 1992, Wichita, Kansas. Me and a buddy of mine, we went to Ozzy Osbourne concert, and it was called the No More Tours tour, which, he's fucker's still
right. He's still kicking.
Yeah, still going. It was Ozzy Osbourne, Alice in Chains, and Sepultura.
And you never heard of Sepultura at this point, right? You were going for Ozzy, probably.
Yeah, we went for Ozzy. Yeah. And we knew Alice in Chains.
Alice in Chains.
Yeah. Had no clue who Sepultura was. And it was an arena, like thousands of people, and it was general admission. So we got there like super early, like a couple hours early, and we were like, I mean, if there were rows or weren't rows, it was just the floor, but we were like 6 deep from the stage. As time was going by, the whole place was getting packed. I mean, we were like literally being shoved like sardines, just packed into, sort of like the last show we went to.
Yeah.
And Sepultura was the opening act, and lights went out. This green smoke just started coming out from the stage, and this feedback from these amps and stuff. I mean, just this hum and everything. And at the time I'd never even experienced anything like that before,
Right.
So
especially back in the day, I mean, like you said, your parents weren't real letting you weren't exposed to like rock or,
No, not, I mean, my dad had some Rolling Stones albums, and my mom made him like destroy them because they thought it'd be a bad influence on his kids.
Right.
So yeah, when they came out, and even at the time, I didn't even know what a mosh pit was.
Right.
We had no internet, no way of knowing, about concerts and stuff. I mean, yeah, people did videotape stuff like that, but it was only later down the years that, that it was like on YouTube.
Or shown publicly.
Yeah. And So I never forget that Max Cavalera, lead vocalist for Sepultura, he gets up there and they start out with this was during their Chaos AD album.
Hell yeah.
And they started out with Territory, dude. Oh man.
Yeah, I can just imagine how badass that would have been.
Yeah.
Just it's such a badass song too. I mean, just right off the rip to hear that would have been like eye-opening.
And it was. I mean, it starts with that intro and then there's that break.
Yeah.
And Max is on there. He's like, "Are you fucking ready?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Whoa, fuck!"
Right.
What's going on? And all of a sudden, this whole place just went ape shit, like just one big mosh pit.
Hell
thing.
Yeah.
We were pushing and shoving, and I was loving every minute of it.
Yeah, really and that was like the first time that you were in a mosh pit.
Mm-hmm.
And so
yep.
It's just, I can imagine that would be like a turning point. Like you're in a mosh pit for the first time, experiencing probably the hardest thing that you've heard at that time.
Absolutely.
For sure. And then just being in an arena with everybody moshing, I mean, that's got to be definitely like a turning point in your life where you probably wanted harder music since then, probably, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I listened to them, didn't even see Alice in Chains play because I was on such a. I was afterwards. I had to find my buddy because he got pushed out of the mosh pit and had to find him. He was at the concession stand and everything, and he was pissed because he got thrown out and pushed out and everything. But I was just on cloud nine, man. I really was. It was just it was incredible. After that, the very next day, I mean, Ozzy Osbourne put on a good show. I mean, but next day, went right out to the record store and bought the Sepultura Chaos AD album.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah,
that's like such a badass story. And I'm sure like even the listeners that are listening probably, dude, that would have been, because you can, as you're explaining it, you can just envision being there, with the green smoke and the hum of the feedback and everything. Yeah. And Sepultura is such a badass band, especially for that time, like with the political stuff and it was just, I can imagine just being there. It's did you listen to any other types of, did you continue to listen to like Ozzy Osbourne and stuff for a while after that?
Yeah, I mean, after that I started listening to more heavier shit like Ministry. There's a lot of thrash bands. Yeah, where it's a little bit more heavier than just hard rock. Stuff like that. But I mean, that's the one thing that did it for me, that kind of set me into what I'm listening to now. Was, death metal, and it's kind of funny. They say that, the older you get, the mellower you're supposed to be, but I went the opposite way.
Right. So, yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. It's cool too. I mean, in a way, you gotta definitely respect the classics for sure. And this is a good example of it, because I mean, you're watching Ozzy and then you've seen Sepultura, you listen to that and you're like, wow, this is awesome. And they were like some OGs of thrash metal, you know what I mean? So it's like, and then it just kind of went on. I mean, that's a way better story than mine. I started getting into rock when I started playing Guitar Hero when I was a kid. I remember the classic rocks songs on there. I mean, Boston, More Than a Feeling, stuff like that. And then I came across Lamb of God, Laid to Rest. Yeah. And it's kind of a funny story because, that was probably the hardest thing that I've heard at that point. But it was on Guitar Hero, so it was censored. And I remember you had one of those dinosaur ass computers with all your music that you had downloaded on there, and I seen Lamb of God on there, and I played Laid to Rest, and I heard the uncensored version of it, and I was like, dude, this is some badass shit. Like this, it's just such a badass song. And ever since
it's
then,
got a good breakdown.
Yeah, good breakdown. It really, that's got to be like the first like hard song that I listened to, and harder band. And then, throughout my my high school years, I was listening to a lot of new metal, a lot of Slipknot. I was listening to a lot of Slipknot, and I hate to say it, even Five Finger Death Punch. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was a big fan of Five Finger Death Punch. Any new metal at that time was what I was into. I wasn't into death metal at that point. You know what I mean? We went to Rock on the Range in 2012 and saw Five Finger Death Punch, Rob Zombie. I mean, who was out? I mean, there was a lot. Megadeth,
Marilyn Manson.
Yep. And that Slash. That was my first concert, and I loved it, man. I remember specifically telling you, like, man, I want it, because we were it was in Columbus, Ohio. It was at the Crew Stadium, and we were on the bleachers. We weren't I was young. I was like 14, and it was my first concert. So we weren't on the ground, general admission. We were in the bleachers. And I remember telling you that I wanted to be down there.
Yep.
It was.
I remember that. Yep. I remember that distinctly, that you saying that up there.
Yeah.
It's like, Dad, I want to be down there. I want to be there.
Yeah. I seen all the people down there just, moshing, doing the crowd surfing. And it like, I don't know, it was just like an epiphany. I'm like, dude, this is fucking awesome. This is what I want to see and, be a part of. And it was cool, man. It was, I remember Rob Zombie. I had that shirt that said "fuck off" on the back. I was young, so I wasn't allowed to cuss or anything like that at that age or anything. But it was like I got the full experience. I even seen my first tits, I think, during
up on the screen.
With Rob Zombie. I mean, there was boobs all over the place for that, man, and it was just such a great experience that it's like memories that you can you always hold on to, and it's awesome. That's my story. That's the Guitar Hero got me into the classic rock, a little bit of the harder stuff with Lamb of God. Then I got into new metal, and then I remember you playing Dying Fetus, Reign Supreme in your car it was fucking in there for probably 2 years straight.
Yeah, it probably was.
And I remember telling you, to replay Invert the Idols, the first track on there. I loved that breakdown so much. And it kind of opened up a whole new genre of music for me, getting into death metal and the breakdowns. I love the breakdown. That's why I'm into the slamming brutal death metal now, well, like very heavy, because of the breakdowns and just the brutality of it. And Dying Fetus was the first death metal band that I heard that I really got into, and literally like a changing point. And
it is. I totally get it, Bub. I mean, I had the same thing. It's like an epiphany that you just.
What were some of the like first death metal bands that if you can remember that you started?
The first CD that I ever bought. Well, I bought 2 of them at the FYE. Back, they don't have those anymore. But the first death metal CDs I bought Carnifex, The Disease and the Poison, and the Acacia Strain, Dead Walk.
Hell
those are the first 2 I got, and I was hooked on that. I was. And I had the fortunate of meeting Carnifex just a few months ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. How was that show?
It was cool. It was awesome.
Who else were they playing with? Anybody else that was big? Or
I'm trying to. Yeah, it was just a Carnifex. Because I remember the bands weren't bad. I can't even remember the names though. They're like small local groups.
Yeah, it was like mainly Carnifex.
But it was mainly.
But they put on a pretty badass show.
Yeah.
How was meeting them? Were they?
Really
cool
super
guys?
Cool. Yeah, super cool. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I started listening to that, and then even when when you were listening to the Dying Fetus and stuff in my car, I mean, I was listening to that. I was listening to, even dabbled into some Brutal Slam, Cranium, Avulsed, Amputated.
Hell yeah.
Big Skinless fan. I love Skinless, you know, and I know you do too.
Oh yeah, Skinless, man. They're if
badass.
they ever come around Ohio, that's going to be a show to go to for sure. I don't care if they're the only one on the bill that's good, you know.
Absolutely.
That's somebody you got to see. That's awesome, man. I stuck with Dying Fetus for a while. And you know, that was pretty much the only death metal band I was listening to probably for a year or so or two. And then I started getting into Cannibal Corpse and, you know, just I kind of went to like the more mainstreamy death metal bands. But then, you know, as I've grown up, I've gone into, I mean, it's endless with what I've listened to now, you know, with death metal. The Brutal Slam is mainly what I'm into now. I love death metal, and I always will love death metal. But if I had to choose one over the other, I think slamming brutal death metal is probably where I'm at right now, as far as like.
And you've turned me on to a lot of Brutal Slam that I didn't even know was a Devour the Unborn.
Yep. Cerebral Incubation.
Yep, that's another one. Yep.
Yeah, man. It's just there's something about it. I don't know, the vocals. It's just. In the music itself is just so hard and like badass and brutal, and it's just, to me, it's like the max that you can get with, you know, you getting into metal is like a drug. You just like want more and more, and you want like the harder shit, you know what I mean? Like you start off with classic rock, then you get to new metal, and then you get to like, you know, the heavier thrashy stuff, and then like deathcore, and you know, eventually you're at death metal and fucking slam, you know. And you just, for me anyway, personally, I just want the hardest thing that I can fucking find, you know, the most brutal vocals, the most brutal riffs. That's like what I'm looking for. Album covers, yeah, dude. That's the other thing. The brutal, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of badass covers for like death metal and stuff, but there's, dude, the slam, I mean, this shit you can't even fucking it's so uncensored, you know, you can't even pick them up at a store or something, you know, or obviously the shit's so underground it wouldn't be at a store anyway, but you know, it's there's so, I mean, you got somebody's fucking baby fetus getting ripped out of a vagina and getting fucking cut in half or something. You know, it's like brutal as fuck. It's not just, you know, your typical album cover or whatever. But
I even remember when Cannibal Corpse Butchered at Birth came out.
Oh yeah,
I remember seeing that at the record store, and it was all in butcher paper, like it was covered up in butcher paper.
That's fucking awesome.
And it was like, you bought it and it's like, wow, you don't even know what the cover looks like, you know? So you're just like, and then you open it up and it's like, oh,
and you see Butchered at Birth and shit.
It's like, it's awesome. Yeah.
That would be awesome, man. It's like, sometimes I wish I was older to where I would have been able to experience this stuff like in the 80s and the early 90s when, you know, when the shit was really popping off, and you get all those old school bands like fucking Deicide, Morbid Angel, Suffocation, you know, early, you know, Cannibal Corpse and stuff. That was like, and just recently I was talking to you about that Massacre, and shit, that band. I never, to this day, I mean, I just found out about them a couple days ago, and I'm surprised because they were good, man. It was like death, you know, like you know, like you were saying, that's what they sound like, the old school.
Bolt thrower, you know, that kind of thing.
I dig the old school sound, you know what I mean? And I don't know if you've listened to the Massacre, you know, Massacre's newer albums, but they have like a old school sound, like straight up.
Yeah, I haven't listened to them lately, but I know they're older. Their older shit's really good. Yeah,
I think their first album was like 91. Yeah, so I mean, it was pretty close to when shit was like, you know, popping off.
Right.
And, death metal is starting to become something, and you know, shit like that. But yeah, it was. I'm all over the place with my music, whether it's death metal, brutal slam. I mean, the bands are just endless with both of those genres. It's like it's hard to keep track sometimes, you know.
Yeah, now they got so many categories, death metal, deathcore,
Yeah,
metalcore, new metal, it's
there's so many subgenres. It's like it's hard to keep track, and then you got all these metalheads arguing over what was what, and
but you know what I say? If it fucking sounds good,
yeah,
fuck, who
exactly,
cares? Who
yeah,
cares
dude. I mean,
what it is,
if I'm listening to a new metal band and it sounds good, fuck, or deathcore, and if it sounds good to me, that's all that matters. You know what I mean? I don't really give a fuck what it's called necessarily. I mean, I like to use the terms, the genres, just to kind of break it up a little bit. To if I'm explaining a band to somebody or explaining a certain type of music to somebody, that's when I bring up genres. But as far as just listening to the music itself, I mean, shit, dude, I still listen to classic rock every once in a while. Metallica, AC/DC, fucking, It's nice to throw on every once in a while, something change it up a little bit.
Yeah, because I mean, like we've talked about this before, if it wasn't for these bands back then pushing the envelope in each generation, we wouldn't be listening to the shit we like now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely the grandfathers of the shit set it in stone for us, Yeah. And Brutal Slam, there wouldn't be anything close to Slam. Nobody would have the balls to make Brutal Slam without like fucking Ozzy Osbourne way back in the day, and fucking Morbid Angel and
all the thrash metal bands.
Sepultura, they're a big one, definitely a turning point in the metal world. It's just it's really cool to think about how much they all like come into play. That's why I tell everybody, whether you like it or not, you still got to respect it. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to listen to death metal or new metal or anything, but it all kind of comes together, and whatever you're listening to, it had something to do with that. So you still gotta, same with horror movies, it's with everything. You got to respect the beginning, the godfathers of this, of anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So that's basically it for the death metal, is how I got into it and how you got into it. What about some I'm sure the listeners probably want to know about some of the bands that we've seen. I mean, I know there's I know there's been tons. But here's a good question for you. What was your favorite show that you've been to this far in your life? I know it might be hard. I mean, I know there's a lot.
It's hard to top that Sepultura concert, because I mean that was just like it was like total adrenaline. I mean, I was just on cloud 9. It was just a natural high that I was on,
Yeah.
But there's been some awesome ones. I mean, I don't even know if I can even like pinpoint one. There's just been so many awesome shows. I mean, the last one we went to was I mean that was great.
Yeah, that
Ingested,
Lorna Shore, Ingested and Aborted, Angel Maker, and even their opening act. I wish I could give them credit, but I don't remember their name. But they were even good. I mean, it was just such a great show. That's got to be my favorite show. I've always wanted to see Ingested for a long ass time.
Me too. I've not seen them up to then either.
And dude, they put on a fucking show. I mean, it was our first Wall of Death.
I thought for sure we're gonna die.
Oh, dude, me too, man. But it's like we were at the very front too. We were at the very front. So I mean, we're just looking at the guy across from us, and we're just like, "Yep, we're gonna fucking die," Yeah. But at that point, it's like your adrenaline's rushing so much, and you just know there's no turning back. At this point, it's like you're gonna have to just give it your all, and and dude, it was awesome. It was so. I mean, that I can't even express. I mean, it was like just being high as fuck, like on like cloud 9. That's how crazy it was being in that. That Wall of Death and the mosh pit afterwards.
And the whole pit was really great. I mean, it just
somebody gets knocked down, you pick them right back up. You're not out there to hurt anybody,
right?
And that they all understood that the etiquette to it. Everybody was on the same page with the pit.
Yeah. And it was such a great pit that, I mean, and to the fact the security was holding up the barriers and shit,
Yeah.
you know, because
Yeah.
it got that brutal.
Yeah, it was that intense.
It was cool.
They were just to let the listeners know, it was like, I mean, there had to have been like 40 or 50 people down on this floor, this really tight. I mean, we were in there like sardines.
Yeah, it was a House of Blues.
Yeah,
you know, that's kind of nationwide. So if
yeah,
anybody's been to the House of Blues,
yeah, we were at the House of Blues in Cleveland, Ohio, and I think I might have talked about the Wall of Death in another episode, but we'll get back on it. But there was like, when we got to after the Wall of Death and everything, it got into this big ass mosh pit, and it was so intense that everybody in the pit was pushing everybody back towards this barrier, and the barrier was coming down, and the security was getting pissed. They're like, you can't, because they had all their fucking, for whatever reason, they had all their equipment behind the fucking barrier,
all the mixing boards and everything, right?
Yeah, and they're like, we can't ruin this and stuff. And I'm like, dude, what do you fucking want us to do, man?
Well, if you remember right, in the beginning they posted a thing: no moshing, no crowd surfing, no nothing.
Dude. And dude, I was gonna be so pissed if we weren't allowed to mosh or anything. I mean, Ingested, Aborted, Lorna Shore, Angel Maker, and you're talking no fucking pits. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
And that's exactly it. And it was like the most brutal pit that I've ever been in. So it's like, you know, it kind of made up for itself. But yeah, man, the fucking barriers were coming down. It took like 4 security guys to hold it. I mean, and they were big too. They were big guys to hold it up from everybody knocking it down and shit. So
yeah, and speaking about brutal shows, what about that Suffocation show that we saw up in Detroit?
Yeah, man, that shit was what was it? Suffocation, cattle decapitation, and who was the? It was Christian, right?
Yep, Christian
and Visceral Discord. Yeah,
that was a great lineup.
Yeah, up until that Ingested and Aborted show that we just went to, that was my favorite lineup. Was the Suffocation. Yeah. You know that, and it was Frank's
last.
Frank
Mullen from Suffocation.
Yep, it was his last tour, right?
Yep.
And he still hasn't like came back or did anything since then, right?
Yeah, no.
It was definitely worth the drive.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're in Ohio, so it was, what was it, like probably 4 or 5 hours?
It was like 3.5.
Oh, was it 3?
Yeah.
Damn. Well, it was it was worth that drive for sure. I mean, because we're used to going to Cleveland, which is we are in Mansfield, so it's like an hour and 20 minutes or so. So, you know, driving 3 hours is kind of a long haul to see somebody.
Yeah, especially when you get back at 3:00 in the morning, you know?
Yeah, it was like 3 in the morning. And
we had to go to work the next day.
Yeah, dude. So it's like that show was awesome, man. We even I'll tell a funny story to the listeners, man. When we went to Visceral Disgorge's merch table, because if you don't know by now, I mean, Visceral Disgorge is like one of my favorite slam bands. I mean, by hands down. They're actually what really got me into the slam. You know what I mean? They're a big, and it wasn't even supposed to be them on the bill.
Yeah,
it was supposed to be Surruption. Yeah, and we went to their fucking merch table, and it was fucking the vocalist Travis there the whole time that was selling us the shit, and we didn't even fucking know it was him. They were such a big band that I was into, but I never like took the time to look up who the vocalist was or what he looked like or anything. And he's talking to us all. He's really cool, really nice guy and shit.
Yeah, he was.
And we're just buying merch from him and not knowing who he is. You can kind of tell, like, and after the fact, you can kind of tell that he was like hinting around, like, yeah, man, what do you think of the band and shit. And we're just like, oh yeah, at least we didn't say nothing stupid. At least we were like, yeah, man, this fucking band's awesome. And it was just such a great time at that show, and it was a really good memory up until that Ingested and Aborted show that we recently went to. That was my favorite show and favorite lineup with, I mean, dude, like we said a few minutes ago with Frank in his last, dude, he put on a fucking show.
He did. And I thought what was really cool is that after the show, he stopped to sign shit and meet people and stuff, you know, on the stage up there. So
it's one of them genuine things with like death metal and slam and stuff, is it's not about the money. It's not about, you know, it's about the fans, and like they actually care about the fans, and you know what I mean? And they respect the fans. And that just seeing Frank come down and sign people's CDs and just their shirts or whatever and talk to them and bullshit, you know, it was just like, it reminds you of why you're listening to the shit that you're listening to. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, we didn't pay $700 to see this band, and another $1,200 to meet Frank, you know what I mean? We did it all for $20. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is
these bands make their money off merch. That's how they make their money, you know, and it's sure as hell not, because they can't over here. They could barely fill clubs and bars and shit. Overseas, I mean, they sell out stadiums and stuff. But it's not like that over here.
No, I mean, what was that one time? We met Dying Fetus, and they were Trey, the drummer, was late to the meet and greet because he was drying his fucking clothes, you know. They, you know, because they're on the road, all they have is their tour bus. They don't have fucking washing machines and drying machines and shit, you know. So,
and you and I were the only ones there for the meet and greet.
Dude, that was
badass.
That was awesome. So you know, Dying Fetus is my all-time favorite band. Like I said previously, that they were the first death metal band that I was listening to and got hip to, and in your car, you know, and meeting them for the first time, dude, that was like just so awesome. And they were so cool, you know. And it's always nice when you're meeting somebody that you look up to and you really dig their music and you've been listening to for years, and they're just down to earth guys, you know. And it was just meeting them. Like you said, we were the only people in there.
It was nice for 45 minutes. We were there
bullshitting with John and fucking Sean and Trey, man. That was one of my favorite memories.
Speaking of meet and greet, what about Obituary?
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, we met Obituary. It was what was it? Obituary and Hatebreed, which we met Hatebreed too.
Yeah, we did.
But dude, fucking Obituary in their RV or in their tour bus. Yeah, man, dude. In their tour bus. It was crazy as fuck too, because we went up there. And we were the only. There was one other person. It was a dude with his daughter. And we were the only 4 people in the VIP. And we go into their bus, and it was funny as hell, because when we were walking in there, they're like, you know, you can smell weed, and you know, you can tell there's like a little party going on and shit. And the guy who was, you know, he wasn't in the band or anything, but he was like directing us up into the tour bus and stuff. He's like, hey, there's a kid out here and stuff, and he like makes us wait for a minute because they're like cleaning up their shit. They probably had like strippers and shit, you know. And you know, in my head, that's you know, they're doing drugs. They got like strippers in there and shit. And man, they were really cool too. Everybody that we've met, or that I've met anyway, with the death metal or just metal in general. I mean, like we met Hatebreed. And you know,
they were cool too. Yeah, he was super cool.
They're
just they don't kind of fall into the death metal category,
right?
Yeah, they're still badass.
Yeah, man. They were all cool and down to earth. They compliment you on your shirt or something. I know he complimented on one of my hats. I think I had.
Oh yeah, I had a Suffocation shirt on. Yeah.
I might have had like a Diarist Murder hat on. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was like, "Man, nice hat, man," because he's into like death metal.
Is. Yeah, I know that.
So yeah, that was really cool, man. We've done some fucking badass shit. Like we've gone to so many badass shows, man, and the VIPs are just such a great way to like really get to know the band, you know, and. We haven't had a bad experience yet. So hopefully, I mean, knock on wood, hopefully we never do. But I mean, I'd like to meet Travis Ryan from, Cattle Decapitation.
That's another one of my favorites, Cattle Decapitation. I've been listening to them for a long time. And yeah, I've seen him 3 times. I think you've seen him twice.
Yep. Yeah, dude, they're such a badass band.
Yeah.
His vocals, man, the range in his vocals are just ridiculous. He's such a great vocalist.
Yeah.
He can have, he hits those highs and he hits the fucking deep gutturals that make your fucking, like, it's brutal as fuck,
Yeah. I think they're another one that's coming out with new stuff.
Yeah. They released their album cover and name and the soundtrack or the track.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. I wish I remembered what it was, but I know that the album cover is like super badass.
Oh yeah, it is.
And he posted like a badass story about it too, like he normally does.
Yeah.
But I guess, did you hear about how somebody like leaked all of his stuff?
Yeah, I read the post on there that he had on there too.
I guess some guy in some kid actually in a different country like leaked all of their information on the album and on the the names of the songs and shit, which it's like a big deal to these bands, because they want that build up effect of the albums, and they want to be able to tell the story behind the albums and stuff like that. But when people just go and leak all this shit,
Yeah, and it's a whole promotional thing too. I mean, they're doing it at certain times to not, somebody else comes out with their album, then they're in competition with their album. And
it's like an algorithm type of thing. They want to be able to make it public at the right times and shit. Yeah. So that was, I seen him, Travis Ryan, he was pissed big time when he found out that people were leaking it.
He's gone through a lot of different stuff with fans and stuff, just people just being dicks and stuff, over stuff.
Which, I mean, from what I gather, he seems like a pretty cool guy. I follow him on Facebook and stuff. Yeah. I mean, I know you can't really tell how a person is just by Facebook and stuff, but he's definitely a guy that I would want to meet for sure.
Yeah. And we talked about my first experience with mosh pits. So what was your first experience with mosh pit? My
first experience with a mosh pit was, I forget what year it was, but there's this tour, Ink and the Clink. So in Mansfield, Ohio, for all the listeners, we have a prison, like a haunted prison called the Reformatory. And they put on a show, like a tour. It's just like it's like a weekend thing. And it was called Ink and the Clink. It's called Incarcerated now, or
Ink Incarcerated.
Yeah. And back in, man, I don't even know what year it was. It was probably 6 years ago or some shit. But I don't know, something like that. But dude, it was some random band. It was a woman vocalist. I can't remember her name or the band. But she went pretty hard, in my eyes anyway, at that point. And we were just walking up to the stage, and we just got into the pits right there, man. It was just, and we pretty much started it, really. I mean, it was like me, you, and like another dude at first. And then next thing I know, it's like, there's probably 10, 15 people in it at that, by the end of it. And I mean, my adrenaline was pumping, and it's a funny story because when, it was my first pit, so I didn't understand the etiquette of things, and I didn't understand necessarily how pits worked and stuff like that. So, I'm like, I'm really getting into it, and I'm just pushing and lowering my shoulder into these guys and shit like this. I'm like looking for my dad. I was younger too. I wasn't. I don't even think I was 18. I was probably 18, maybe 17, 18, something like that. And, I'm looking for my dad. I'm like, where the fuck is he? And I could not find him anywhere, and next thing I know, they stopped the show because he's on the ground. And instantly I like got pissed. I'm like, what the fuck? Who the fuck? Because I didn't understand like what was going on. And, and they helped him up and stuff, which was cool. I mean, it wasn't intentional, obviously.
Yeah.
And
it's being in the pit.
Yeah, it's just being in the pit. It's just what now after years and years of being in the pits, I know what the fuck it's about. But at the time, I was like, I instantly got mad. And Dad, they pick him up, and he's like fucking on cocaine, man. This dude is like,
it's adrenaline.
He's hyped. He's like, and I'm mad because I didn't understand. He's fucking hyped.
I got
he's like
blood coming down my arm and shit.
And you're just like, let's fucking go, let's get it and shit.
Yeah, because I remember the guy asked me, he got me up and he's like, dude, you all right? All right. Fuck yeah, let's fucking go, man. Let's mosh. You know, it's the adrenaline.
It is.
It was. I was so pumped up after that.
Yeah, and seeing you pumped up and shit, like pump me back up. I like, I realized that's just what fucking happens in pits, and
get knocked down, get right back up again.
And so that's my very first pit, and that show. I went there. This was back, like I said, when I was into like new metal and just metal, hard rock. And I was into 3 Days Grace and stuff, and they were the headliners that night. And when we finally got to that point, I was pumped. I was in this pit, we had a few drinks in us and shit, and I was ready for more pits. Like when you're in a pit for a while and you're just like, you want more and more and more.
Fever.
Yeah. So I'm like, dude, maybe these guys are going to have a pit and we can get back into one or something like this. And dude, they fucking sucked big time. I mean, the dude was trash. His stage presence was horrible. He was so sloppy up there. He wasn't even like, it was almost like he wasn't even conscious how he was talking and shit. I'm like, dude, this isn't even right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was not feeling it at all. And I, like I said, I was still high off this fucking adrenaline from the pit that we were in. And I remember looking at you, I'm like, dude, you fucking ruined it for me, man. Because at this point I was already dabbling into death metal and stuff like this, and I was already,
you were listening to Dying Fetus.
I was already into dabbling into the harder shit, and just really, that's what I wanted, and this going to Ink and the Clink was like the nail in the coffin for that. You know what I mean? It was like the turning point. Literally, my biggest turning point was seeing that shit. And that, like I said to you, man, I was like, you fucking ruined it for me. And then we left. We didn't even finish. No, we didn't even finish the 3 Days Grace show. We just, and ever since then, dude, I've been into like the hardest of hard fucking rock, metal, death metal slam. And it's just memories, even though it wasn't the greatest shows that we've been to, the Ink and the Clink and stuff, it's still a big turning point. If we wouldn't have gone to that, who knows, I'd still be listening to that shit. And it's like, I'm happy where I am with listening to the death metal and the slam. This is like what I've like I said earlier, it's like an epiphany. It's like what you want. You just know what you want when you're listening to this music. And once you go to these shows and you're in that environment where everybody's on the same page, and it's like a brotherhood, and everybody has respect for you. You have respect for them, and you're just all there for the same fucking reason. And I mean, dude, going to these shows, I mean, there for a while, we were going to like 3 or 4, sometimes 5 a year,
until COVID hit.
And then COVID hit, and we didn't have a show for like 2 years or something. And finally, that Immolation and Cannibal Corpse show came along this last year. Now, I mean, it's only January of this year, so it was last year. In 2022, it was like December, wasn't it? Or November, maybe.
November, I think it was.
November. Cannibal Corpse and Immolation, man, that, it sparked it back up for me. We haven't been to a show in 2 years, and I'm like, man, fucking Cannibal Corpse, and we seen Immolation. This is my first time. I didn't even know about Immolation until that show. You did. You knew about Immolation.
I listened to Immolation, for a long time, but that for me, that was the first time seeing them.
And dude, I mean, the pit was I mean, it took a minute for people to start, like, and that one guy started it, and it was just like a huge pit after that, man. It was like, I think even the lead vocalist, I don't know his name, for Immolation, he was like, man, thanks for fucking participate in this show. Like he was just like, everybody was feeling it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was like, man, you guys are awesome. And,
Yeah.
it was just such a great experience seeing that. And then, of course, Cannibal Corpse. I mean, we've seen him a couple times. You've seen him more than I have.
Three times.
Yeah.
I think I've seen him 3 times.
And they always George Fisher, man, fucking corpse grinder. He's, one of a kind. He's such a fucking, he'll beat your ass with his neck.
Right. Nobody out headbangs him.
Man. Oh, hell no. You will fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's, I always love it when he's like, I can't remember which one. I think it's Fucked with a Knife, when he's like, this one's for you ladies and shit. And all the girls are like, woo, and shit. Yeah. He's like, I don't think you're going to be fucking.
Yeah.
He's like, fucked with a knife. Yeah. Or the I Come Blood one's always good too. Yeah. And
that's shit. The same stuff. But
he's one of my favorite like frontmen. You know what I mean? He puts on like he interacts with the audience, and after we've gone to so many shows, we realize it's kind of the same after you see it.
Right.
But it makes for a good show when the frontman is like into it just as much as the audience.
Right.
It's not like they're not just up there
just playing song after song and not saying anything or nothing. A lot of times you don't know these groups and everything, so you don't know what the hell they're playing. You don't know what song they're playing or whatever.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the best frontman for sure. So, dude, I was just wondering, like, what's your favorite fucking death metal band? I know it's going to be hard to choose, but I mean, you can even say a couple.
Because it is so hard. I mean, I love so many. Skinless, we mentioned earlier. That's one of my favorite ones, and be able to see them someday live would be awesome. But Cow Decapitation. I've always liked Cannibal Corpse, Suffocation, kind of mostly the old school kind of stuff. Because it's just I was listening to that in that kind of time when they were going kind of stuff. But it's hard to Dying Fetus, of course. I mean, I listened to them for a while, but it's hard to like pinpoint one favorite one. I mean, how about you, Bo?
I think Dying Fetus, just for many reasons, but they're also what got me into the death metal. So I appreciate them for that. And I don't know, man. I just love the flow between Sean and John, the vocalist. Yeah. So it's like, you got John, who's got the like deeper, little barking type vocals, and then Sean's got like it kind of balances out. It's like a more of a higher type, not like high, but different range than John's, and they just go back and forth, and it's just and they're just the music in general. I mean, the riffs, the breakdowns, it's just brutal as fuck. They have the type of albums where you can listen to their whole fucking album. It's not like there's a couple bands.
Stick it in, push play, and just let it go.
Like for example, like Carnifex, to me anyway, it's like they have some good songs, but like I can't just listen to their whole album. The only album that I could listen to is what you mentioned was their
Seized and the Poison.
Yeah. That's the only one I can like listen to the whole thing and not have to pick out this different songs. But Dying Fetus, I mean, and they're coming out with a new album this year too. It's in 2023. They've mentioned a little bit about it last year in 2022, and I don't know what's holding them back, but I think they're having some type of problems with getting it out for some reason. I don't know much about it, but because they seem like it was almost done last year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about it, and I mean, I just heard, and whether this is true or not, who knows?
Right.
But, they said that the album is actually done, and there's just some scheduling conflict with the record label, so I don't know.
And I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you remember this or not, but wasn't there like a family emergency or something like a couple months ago?
Yeah.
Was that dying fetus?
Yeah, but it was like last year.
It was like November, right?
That's what
or
I was going to
something
say.
like,
November, somewhere around there. Yeah,
yeah.
they had to cut their tour shorter.
Yeah,
something.
I never did hear more about that or
I
anything.
didn't either. So I don't.
But yeah, man, I hope that that's one thing I'm really anticipating this year. We've already had Obituary drop their album, and dude, that was fucking awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
They never disappoint, man. They're like one of those old school bands that never changed their sound. You know, they don't change.
Yeah.
Like Cannibal Corpse. You know, it's like.
Yeah.
But it's still good. Like it doesn't get old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of bands who never change, but it's like maybe they should have changed.
Yeah.
You know, Obituary is one of those bands where like they keep putting out brutal stuff, and it's just you know, it's good. This last album was great.
Yeah, they're another one of my favorites too.
Oh
Obituary. It's hard to just name.
Yeah.
Name
the
one.
I love the vocalist for Obituary.
Yeah, John.
Yeah,
John Tardy.
He has such a unique voice. Like you can just point out, oh yeah, that's fucking Obituary. You know what I mean? It's just he has that like zombie. It's like almost like we've joked about it before, where it's like it's almost like somebody throwing up.
Yeah. Like slowly we rise.
Yeah,
like,
or chopped in half. He's like chopped in half.
Right.
Yeah, dude. It's like, but it's so brutal and badass and different. You know, it's every once in a while, especially with the slam, the brutal slam, it can start to sound the same and stuff, which I don't really mind it that much. I know more people mind it when it like is all sounds the same and it's consistent with the same sound and shit. But I dig it. It's just like a unique. I must have like a unique ear for slam or something. But and I can understand why it would get old for people, but that's just one of them things though with Obituary is like, you know, it's so different. And it's good, man.
I think I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you even dug them even more when we saw them live.
So when I first heard them, you know, I wasn't really listening. I was listening to death metal, but not so much of like the old school, like the old fucking death metal, you know. And I dug them, but it wasn't like anything, you know, I wasn't like my favorite or anything like that. But after we seen them live with Hatebreed, dude, it was like it was kind of like your Sepultura thing. I mean, it's like exactly. It had the fucking the green smoke coming out, the fucking
redneck stomp.
Redneck stomp, dude.
It's awesome.
That fucking, you know, instrumental. It's just the hard ass riffs and with the green smoke, and I'm just like, holy shit, dude! Like I was on like cloud 9 watching this shit. And it definitely one of the bands that I've seen live, and I'm like, yeah, these guys are. And ever since, dude, I've bought their merch since then. I've bought an album. Like they're just so fucking badass, you know. And I respect them. You know, they're one of the OGs of death metal. So you know, right up there with, like I said earlier, Morbid Angel, Deicide, fucking Death. I mean, Suffocation. You know, there's just so many bands that paved the fucking way, you know, and as a metalhead, you just gotta, you know, respect that.
And I'm kind of excited because I mean, we're kind of finding new bands that are, you know, started in the last few years or so, starting with, you know, death metal and brutal slam and stuff. You know? So that's exciting. Like it's not dying down or anything. You know, we're gonna have some new.
There was a point. So there was a point where like metal seemed like it was slowing down. Obviously, it was probably because of COVID and shit, but it just really, you know, we weren't getting much from anybody, new content, new albums. We haven't heard, you know, there was a point where you just didn't hear much from anybody about what was going on, you know, except for Max Tracks.
Max Cavalier. The Max Tracks. He was on. That's what most of them had to do is just go to video and, you know, because we're confined to our homes and shit. And
I remember Obituary also, they were like,
they were doing shows. Like just people pay to
virtual
watch a streaming.
shows.
Yeah,
It's like
virtual shows. Yeah.
You know, it's sad because that was like the only way they could make some money. You know,
Right.
I'm sure most of the bands that aren't as big probably like have actual jobs and you know, they're not touring as much or anything like that. So they, but like these guys who like tour for months on end and make their money that way and don't have like jobs.
Yeah.
I mean that they had to rely on videos and just you know, merch really. I mean, and that's sad too because I didn't even see much new merch either during the COVID times.
No.
You know, it's like metal just like flew off like the fucking earth. You know what I mean? There was just like nothing new, nobody really talking about anything. It was like kind of a weird time in metal.
Yeah, kind of sucked.
Yeah,
because we were just looking for new stuff and but I'm kind of excited. I mean, newer death metal and newer brutal slam coming out with bands that are just started. I mean, what was the one that you just showed me the other day?
Facial Fracture.
Yeah,
they're a new. I was listening to them and they were good, man.
Yeah,
like, you know, these new bands are coming out. I mean, they're keeping up with, you know, competition and shit. Like they're actually doing pretty well. And
I'm excited for it. I'm really
Me
really
too.
excited for new bands. Keep fucking supporting metal, man.
Oh yeah, dude, for sure. You know, go to their merch tables, buy some merch. We are very good at buying merch. You know, you're wearing an aborted shirt right now. I'm wearing an adjusted shirt right now. You know, it's like
support the bands you love.
Yeah, and it keeps them putting albums out, and you know, they sacrifice a lot to come out and play for us. You know, especially fucking. People coming from overseas, you know, ingested and stuff. I mean,
they have families, kids, and stuff. They got to support.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely support your bands. Buy the merch, buy the tickets, go see them. You know, and
nothing better than live music, man. Nothing better.
I think all the metalhead followers that we have can definitely agree on that. I mean, seeing like with Obituary, I seen them live and it was just a whole new thing, you know. Angel Maker.
Yep, Angel Maker's another one.
We saw them at a Summer Slaughter a few years back, and you know they were all right. They were pretty good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't nothing, you know, I didn't buy, you know, an album or anything. You know, they were good that I seen live, but after this last time, dude, I don't know what the fuck happened. Like a spark hit them or something. Because, dude,
they're brutal as fuck.
Yeah, man, they were like keeping up with Ingested and Aborted, man. Like they were just as brutal.
Yep.
And it was, like I said, it's such a great show. And yeah, dude, I'm just glad that we go to these shows and we haven't had too much experience with crowd killing.
Yeah, that's one thing. I can't stand that shit.
Yeah,
I really can't.
I can't either, man.
People get hurt, and well, I mean, remember that Summer Slaughter we went to?
Yeah,
it was just two dudes. Nobody would mosh because these two dudes were crowd killing.
Yeah, what was it? That Carnifex and Cattle Decapitation, Summer Slaughter.
Yep.
And it was during Cattle Decapitation set, wasn't it? When these guys, they're like swinging each other around.
Yeah.
And
like swinging each other around and throwing themselves into the crowd.
Yeah, like, and this girl got knocked the fuck out.
Yeah,
and it's like
squad show up, all that bullshit.
The weird thing is like nobody like did anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was just like a weird environment. Nobody. Yeah. I know we've talked about this before, and I'm wondering if like the listeners and the metalheads that follow me, if they're if they can agree with this, if they go to like just regular shows where it's only like 4 bands playing, opposed to going to big tours and stuff, just to
like
kind of
festival,
like that, to avoid like the crowd that just isn't there to see the bands. Right. They're just there for a party, or to beat somebody's ass because that's what they think pits are for, you know. And no, man, I completely agree. That was the first time that we've encountered like crowd killing. I think most of the pits that we've gone to have been pretty, you know, old school.
Yeah. I can't think of any other pit that I've been into that
it
turned
just
out that way.
it makes no sense to me. You know, you're not there to hurt anybody. You know, it's a good way to relieve some anger and stress and shit like that, but you don't hurt somebody in the process. You know, obviously, if you know pushing and low on your shoulder, you know, kind of hurts, whatever.
Yeah.
But like you're gonna get like hurt, but not
you're
like
gonna feel sore the next day.
Yeah, but it's not like intentional. You know,
Right.
like you're not just going up and punching somebody in the fucking face, just because you think that's what fucking happens in a pit, because it's not. You know.
Absolutely.
And you know, we could have people who disagree with us. I think I made a TikTok where I said something about crowd killing, and I had most of the people were pretty much on my side with they didn't dig it, you know, and thought it was bullshit. The people should be ejected from the venue and or their ass beat, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I had a couple that were for it, but it's like, you know, keep that shit at a hardcore concert. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where it belongs. And you know, I don't listen to hardcore. I don't go to hardcore shows because that's what, you know,
that's usually how the pits are.
Yeah,
it's just nothing but crowd killing.
And if that's what you like, cool, but don't bring it to fucking death metal, you know. Don't. It's not, nobody there wants to fucking deal with that shit, you know. Like we were saying, we didn't even go into that pit, and we definitely would have been into the pit for cattle decapitation, you know what I mean, like, and because that's a good way of showing your support for the band, you know, aside from buying their merch and their albums, like being in a pit and showing them that you dig their fucking music and you feel their music. You know what I mean? Yeah. And even Travis Ryan said something about it. He was like, this goes out to the two people in the pit, which, you know, they were doing shitty stuff anyway. I'm surprised he didn't say, he's a pretty like opinionated guy. Yeah. So I'm surprised that he wasn't like, get these fucking dudes out of here or something, you know? Yeah. Especially when that girl got knocked the fuck out. Yeah. I mean, they even called an ambulance for her. That's how, you know, they carried her ass out of there.
Dude, like fucking roundhouse kicked her.
Yeah.
Shit,
and it's like that. How's that okay? You know what I mean?
Right.
In no way, shape, or form is that okay. And so, yeah, man, I stand by my opinion on crowd killing. I don't dig it at all.
Yeah, you know I totally agree with you.
If I'm a huge dude that's into the pits, and I love being involved big time. If I'm not in the pits and I'm fucking tired, I'm at least pushing motherfuckers in the pit. Yeah. And it's just a buzzkill seeing the crowd killing and stuff like that. It totally pisses me off, and it turns me off of the whole show, really. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, me too.
Like that Summer Slaughter, that's got to be, I know we've talked a lot about what the shows that we've loved and stuff. I think that Summer Slaughter is probably the worst.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably the worst show that we've gone to. And it sucks. I mean, Cattle, he's such a badass band, you know, Carnifex. Like,
Carnifex was good.
Yeah, man. Good. And so it's like they ruined it because of the crowd killing, you know?
And, you know, the band isn't getting the vibe from the crowd either, you know, because, you know, it's
these fucking festivals.
They thrive off of that too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you see these frontmen getting into it with the crowd because the crowd's getting into it. Right. You know, when they're not, it's like, you know, who knows what they would think? You know, do they think that they suck? You know, you know what? I'm surprised. Like I said, Travis is very opinionated. I'm surprised he wasn't like, "What the fuck?" You know?
Yeah. I don't know if he. I mean, they were kind of far back too. There wasn't like right up front. So
yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
But yeah, man, I just want to say thanks for coming on here. It was really, really good having you on and just bullshitting about metal. It's, you know, these memories will last forever, and it's awesome that I can experience it with my own dad. You know what I mean? Like, it's really cool that we're on the same page with fucking horror movies, comics. You got me into the comics and metal, man. It's like, we just have so much in common, and it's awesome to be able to do this kind of thing and experience these memories, you know. Like, you know, most people, there's a lot of people who aren't able to experience this kind of thing with their parents, or, you know, honestly, most people who are into this thing, their fucking parents probably hate them, you know. Their parents are probably like, you fucking Satan worshiper motherfucker, you know. So it's cool that, you know, I have a dad that's just as cool as me. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you don't see that shit very fucking often. So yeah, man, I just wanted to say thanks for coming on the show and just explaining how you got into the metal and shit, man. Is I know I'm entertained by the stories, and I'm sure the listeners are too. So
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me on, Bub. I enjoy talking about this. These are memories I cherish with you. Just going to these shows and just talking like we are now. Just talking about metal.
hell yeah, man.
Stuff.
I just I always got to have that one last thing to say to these fucking listeners: get hip or rot. Peace out, guys.